那领导是一项非常十分特别的能力，人们对于这个能力有各种天马行空的想象。它可能是代表让人佩服的个人技能呢，或是一种难以诉说的个人魅力，也有可能对某些人来说，它可能是个愤恨不已，或是愤恨不已的一种工作职称。OK， 好，不论是好的解释还是坏的解释，都没有办法阻止人们去对于带领团队开创未来，走向一个灿烂成功的道路有非常完美的遐想。但实际上坐上这个位置真的有那么美好的状况吗？今天就让我们欢迎拥有17年游戏设计经验，曾经开发星空、一城余生系列，还有上古卷轴5，目前担任 Unknown World 的首席设计师 Shen 来为我们讲解。
All right, hello. Hello. All right, are we on? Okay, good. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome. We'll get started. I'm Shen. I'm a lead designer at Unknown Worlds, the makers of Subnautica and the much anticipated Subnautica 2. I've been there about a year now, and everything that I'm working on is still in development. I'm very excited about what we're up to, but today I'm going to be taking a step back and talking about game design more broadly. We're going to discuss game design leadership. This presents an immediate problem. Few people become game designers, and even fewer become game design leaders. The number of people interested in this topic vastly exceeds the number of people who have direct experience with it. We need a common framework, a reference point, something that most people already know about and understand, something that can showcase leadership in high-pressure situations. And we'll use this framework to explain how game design leadership works. I'm going to propose that our common framework is The Lord of the Rings. Now, it's a fantasy series about hobbits, elves, and wizards, and that might seem an unusual reference point when talking about creative leadership, but bear with me. Let's explore this idea for a little bit and see if the connection becomes clear. In The Lord of the Rings, Frodo, one of the main characters, sets off on a grand adventure with his friends, initially thinking it will be like the heroic stories he was raised on. He soon discovers that adventure is dangerous and grim. Not only is the journey physically hard, but the threat of despair, of giving up entirely, is around every corner. In the end, Frodo loses hope, and he is saved only by the effort of his friend Samwise. Samwise does not lose hope and instead clings to the belief that they will find a way home, even as Frodo becomes convinced they are doomed. At the start of their journey, Frodo and Samwise each believe in a myth, a story about how the world works and what lies ahead of them. This is Frodo imagining a fun adventure and Samwise believing there is always a way home. They then encounter the harsh reality. The real experience is not like the myth at all. Monsters are after them. They nearly starve to death. And here we have two distinct reactions. Frodo gives in to despair. The myth is not reality. There is only temptation and power. Samwise clings to hope. The myth is real. It tells him to not give up on his friend and the dream of seeing home again. We invent myths like this everywhere in our lives. We have a story in our head about how things will go. And these myths are constantly colliding with reality. What we hope for and what we get are different. Why then do we keep making myths if they often disappoint us? What is really going on here, and what are they really trying to say? All right, so that is our framework. We will use characters in The Lord of the Rings to explore the myths of game design leadership. We're going to collide those myths with reality. And then we will dig deeper and explore why the myth persists and what it is really saying. Our first characters to explore are the hobbits: Frodo, Samwise, Pippin, and Merry. These are our game design interns. People at the beginning of a new career. Their experience with leadership is following. The hobbits look first to Aragorn to lead them through the wilds, and then to Gandalf to lead them through the mines of Moria. The hobbits may have their own ideas, they may ask questions, but they are primarily relying on their leads to be their guides. The myth that design interns have about design leadership is that leadership has a clear vision at all times. They know the answers to all the questions. If I follow and learn, everything will be okay. We may not understand the game's design, but the lead designer does, and that's enough to get us there. I can go to them with any question and expect a perfect answer. But Aragorn and Gandalf make mistakes. Aragorn is a master ranger, but he gets ambushed twice on their journey, first by an elven princess and then by the ring wraiths. In his defense, his opponents are supernatural. But Aragorn is clearly skilled, but not all-powerful or omnipotent. Gandalf is a wizard, but loses his way in Moria and gets defeated by a word puzzle that Frodo ends up solving for him. Again, Gandalf is clearly a smart and powerful figure, but he is not perfect. The reality is that design leadership often does not know what it is doing and does not know what the game will be. The entertainment business is in some ways about novelty. You are almost always on the bleeding edge of what is possible in game development, or at least what is possible for your team to accomplish. The times of uncertainty and doubt in game design leadership are constant and persistent all the way up to the end as the game launches and reviews start coming in. You may project a sense of certainty to your team, but that is often only because you know the team must choose to do something, even if it's not guaranteed to be the right thing, that they must have some vision of what the game is, even if the final product is quite different. If the truth is that leadership often does not know what it's doing, then what is this myth really saying? Why do new designers think that leads have, or at least should have, perfect clarity into what is happening at all times? Aragorn and Gandalf may not be perfect, but they do succeed in guiding the hobbits to their destination, even if they could not know what all the paths would be. Frodo and Samwise get to Mount Doom. This is not because Aragorn and Gandalf guide them every step of the way, but because they clear obstacles and know when their help will not be beneficial. Aragorn realizes the temptation of the ring will destroy the Fellowship and that he must let Frodo and Samwise take it to Mount Doom alone. Gandalf sacrifices himself to defeat the Balrog because he knows that only he can defeat it. Good design leadership knows that guidance is more than knowing the perfect path to our destination. It's about knowing when a designer needs to go their own way, when the temptation to control them would ruin their work. It's about knowing when to deal with the difficult challenges, the challenges only someone with your experience and authority can deal with, even if that means you cannot help elsewhere. And this is what our myth is really telling us. Your design interns do not need you to have a perfect vision of the game or to have every answer. What they need is a guide that knows when to trust them with their tasks and when to remove obstacles that only you can deal with. All right, let's look at another set of characters. Gimli and Legolas, the axe-wielding dwarf and the bow-wielding wood elf. These are our design professionals. They're experienced. They have seen danger. Their interaction with leadership is to get the job done. When threats appear, they know what to do without being told. When leadership seems lost, they offer advice on the task at hand. They form rivalries with each other and challenge each other over who is the most skilled. The myth that our design professionals have about leadership is that they exist solely as tools of that leadership. Their skill at getting things done is all that matters to them. They are more concerned about who among them is the best at what they do. They don't care how their rivalries affect each other or the team. But there are times when Gimli and Legolas' skill does not matter. Gimli tries to destroy the One Ring with his axe. That fails. Gimli and Legolas don't win the Battle of Helm's Deep or Minas Tirith on their own, but only as support for larger armies from Rohan and Gondor. The Fellowship of the Ring breaks apart not due to a lack of talent or execution, but because their morale breaks. Loss and hardship causes them to begin giving in to despair and the temptation to seize the One Ring for themselves. The reality is that leadership asks more of a professional than just their skill set. They need to work as a team and towards a goal that is achievable. All the experience and talent in the world means nothing if the task ahead is impossible. If the team is bickering and fighting with each other, then it doesn't matter how productive any individual is. Except for the rare solo designer, designers do not execute on a vision by themselves. They work with artists, engineers, producers, writers, musicians, marketers, and others. Even solo designers tend to lean on family and friends for support in times of doubt and uncertainty. Art is not made alone. Showing off the great things you can accomplish is impressive, but the connections you have with other people are critical. So what is this myth really telling us? Why do design professionals focus so much on the things they can do and not the people around them? Gimli and Legolas start off suspicious of each other. They then form a rivalry over who's the better fighter. After many battles, they finally admit they have become friends. As professionals, their belief in the value of skill gives them a common bond. They are able to see themselves in each other as they work. They smile at each other when leadership gives them a task they know they are both good at. They think their professionalism is about themselves as individuals, but it is, in fact, their way of connecting with each other. Good design leadership recognizes their people problems over their skill problems. They encourage the forming of bonds between team members by pointing to their common values. They celebrate their team so that each member of the team sees not only themselves, but each other as winners. They deal with morale issues and conflicts quickly and directly because if the team falls apart, no amount of skill, talent, or effort will matter. All right, let's continue our tour of characters. Boromir, the son of Gondor. He is our senior designer. He's fought the hardest battles. He has seen things at their worst. His city, Minas Tirith, is under siege by literal forces of darkness, but he and his people endure. The myth that our senior designer has about leadership is that his lead designer does not need to ever worry about him. Our senior designer prides himself on his tough skin. Difficulty comes his way and he keeps going. He speaks out when he dislikes the decisions being made, but he goes along once they're final. No matter the weight on his shoulders, he seems invincible. But over and over again, we see how vulnerable Boromir really is. He is terrified that his city, Minas Tirith, will fall, that all of their sacrifices will be for nothing. The One Ring tempts him with the power to save not himself, but his people. And then the shame of trying to steal the One Ring propels him to fight to the death for his friends. In his final moments, Boromir's emotional walls come down completely. He finally allows himself to share his fears that he is a failure, that he wasn't strong enough. When Aragorn reassures Boromir that this is not the case, that he has fought valiantly, Boromir finally accepts Aragorn's leadership and dies knowing his people will be saved. The reality is that when you're leading a team, your toughest, most experienced people need the most emotional support. They are sensitive to signs of trouble because they have seen how bad things can get. They carry the weight of the whole project on their shoulders and are terrified that it will all fall apart. They assure you that they are personally fine, even as they bluntly describe all the fires they see everywhere. What do we make then of our myth of the invulnerable senior designer? What is it really saying? Boromir is inseparable from his city of Minas Tirith. The city is right next to Mordor, where the forces of darkness are marshaled. Boromir and his people are constantly being raided by Mordor and know they will ultimately be besieged by them. Minas Tirith has its allies, but they do not experience the daily threat of direct evil on their doorstep. While game designers work in an entertainment industry, that doesn't mean the work is always fun. Sacrifices often get made. Long hours are put in. Work that you may have spent years on gets thrown out for the sake of the bigger picture. Money and equipment may not be available when you need it. You are constantly living in uncertainty because the market for entertainment is always shifting. Our myth is trying to tell us that good leadership recognizes that resiliency and sensitivity are not exclusive, and they must be fostered together. Your senior team members have grit. They know about hard work. They know about failure. The fact that they are still here shows just how deeply they are in love with what they do. They want to believe they can make a great game, but are often afraid to show it because they do not want to get hurt again. Rather than leaving them to their own devices, a good leader recognizes that their strongest people need to be listened to the most closely. They will see trouble coming first and can tackle extraordinary amounts of difficulty and stress if they know they are not alone. All right, we're rounding a corner. So far, we've talked about the myths that designers have about their relationship with leadership. Now let's look at our leaders. Aragorn, the heir of Isildur, a man who could claim an entire kingdom, but instead lives in self-imposed exile. He is our newly promoted lead designer. He is somehow both confident and mired in self-doubt. He instinctively leads the fellowship whenever they face danger, but seems reluctant to call himself their captain. The myth that our lead designer is living with is that being a good or a bad leader is somehow about him. He worries whether he is the right person for this job. He does not want to make the mistakes his predecessors made before him. The damage that power and authority can do to other people weighs heavily on his conscience. He fears that if he fully embraces the mantle of leadership, that he will lose his moral compass and become a tyrant. But Aragorn's greatest accomplishments as a leader are not about him. When Boromir sacrifices himself to save the others, Aragorn's inner conflict disappears. He immediately reassures the dying Boromir that the effort was worth it. Aragorn does not debate with Boromir over the ethical merits of the heroic last stand. Aragorn instead quickly pledges to protect Boromir's city and his people because that is what Boromir needs and deserves to hear in his final moments. It's Boromir, not Aragorn, who first recognizes that Aragorn has become the true king of Gondor. We see this again in the Siege of Helm's Deep. The battle has gone badly. Theoden, the king of Rohan, believes the fortress will fall. Aragorn pleads with Theoden to not give up, that his people have sacrificed too much for Theoden to give in to despair. Aragorn asks Theoden to ride out into battle with him one last time. And Theoden muses that Aragorn is just looking for a heroic death. But Aragorn tells him that all he wants to do is fight for the people of Rohan together. Again, all of Aragorn's self-doubt and uncertainty washes away in the face of other people's needs. He inspires Theoden to action because that is what Theoden needs in that moment. Designers are often promoted into leadership based on their individual accomplishments. On their way up the ladder, they think about their qualifications for the job. But leadership is about making the most of other people. Who is making sure everyone has what they need? Who is giving people a direction to follow? As an individual, your impact is limited by your own energy and talent. As a leader, your influence on other people is your primary value. Why is Aragorn worrying so much about himself? Why this myth that he matters so much when leadership is about how everyone else matters? Making other people effective is not in itself moral or altruistic. A leader can be selfish while he is serving others. There can be an agenda behind the influence. They can make others dependent on their approval. We cannot know if our leaders have our best interests at heart at first. Human beings are wired to be cooperative. We default to trusting each other. Having someone give you direction and push you to excellence feels good. People only realize they have been taken advantage of when it is too late, when they no longer serve a leader's desires. The myth is telling Aragorn that while his effectiveness as a leader is not about him, his character is going to count when it really matters. When Frodo offers him the One Ring, Aragorn turns it down. At the final battle with the forces of darkness, Aragorn rallies his allies for an assault that is likely dooming all of them, on the faint hope that it might help Frodo destroy the One Ring. Whenever Aragorn is asked to choose between what is best for himself and what is best for everyone, he chooses everyone's best interests every time. When you become a lead designer, you are involved in more high-level decisions behind closed doors. You can set conversations about who on your team is doing well, whose work needs to be reconsidered, where cuts need to be made. You might be on a panel discussing whether someone should be promoted or whether they should be fired. Whether you are thinking about what is easiest for you or what is best for the team is going to count in those moments. Our final example. We'll focus on the wizards. Gandalf, Saruman, and Sauron. These are our senior leaders, our directors. They lead other leaders. Their plans influence kingdoms. On a high level, the conflict within Middle-earth is the conflict between these three figures. The myth that our directors believe, but each have a very different interpretation of, is that there is a difference between the people who lead and carry out the big tasks and those who don't. Of our three wizards, Gandalf believes in this myth the least, but even he is pained when Frodo volunteers to carry the One Ring himself at the Council of Elrond. His worry comes from a place of compassion. He knows how difficult the burden will be. He feels Frodo has risked enough. He does not doubt that Frodo can do it, but he does not feel he should do it or that he should do it alone. Saruman believes his kind to be superior. He believes the wizards are better than the other peoples and that wizards are destined to rule. This superiority extends even to himself, and he believes he is the best even among his peers. He doesn't just attempt to conquer Middle-earth. He intends to do so by going to war with everyone, all at once, with an army he's grown from vats, using sorcery and outfitted with equipment that seems to have been built just yesterday. Sauron is the more mysterious figure, but we see his beliefs clearly through his most prized possession, the One Ring. The One Ring's true magic is its ability to tempt others. It promises strength, dominion over the land. It tells you that everyone else is out to betray you, that only you deserve the ring. This is what Sauron truly believes, that everyone desires to dominate everyone else. All that matters is strength. He deserves to lead because he has an army that will kill you if you resist. But all three of our wizards underestimate the differences their followers make in their plans. Gandalf is continually surprised at Frodo's courage and cleverness. He does not originally plan on Frodo's friends to accompany them, but realizes only in the moment how important they are. Saruman betrays his longtime allies, the Ents, burns their trees, believing them to be of no consequence. But then the Ents besiege his tower and defeat him while his army loses the Battle of Helm's Deep. And Sauron's army of orcs, so steeped in the mindset of dominance and betrayal, kill each other over Frodo's possessions and completely miss their opportunity to recover the One Ring when Frodo is captured. Designers who achieve the highest levels of leadership are there to think about big problems. You're no longer worrying about whether one feature is good enough. You're worried if the product you are making will compete in the market of all the other products you know are being made. Your peers are no longer the people you work with, but other directors at other studios. And while the games industry is collegiate, even at the highest levels, there's only one game of the year. And so your peers are also your competitors. You live in a world where each of you is making plans and marshaling your respective teams and the concerns of the team itself seem more and more trivial. A director can realize only too late how much their own personality has been infused into the culture of the people who work for them. A director who values speed and productivity eventually has a team that never thinks about why they're doing something and makes strategic mistakes that would have been obvious if they had had a moment to reconsider. A director who values harmony and dislikes arguing eventually has a conflict-avoidant team that is unable to make decisions because the very nature of a decision is the resolution of conflict. A director who values confidence and strength eventually has a team where only the loudest opinion wins and everyone else is afraid to speak up. So our directors are not above the people they lead, but are instead glued to them. Their plans succeed or fail, not in a contest between other directors, but in how their own teams work together. So why this myth that leaders and followers are separate? What's really going on here? Gandalf allows Frodo to be the ring bearer, even though it is clear how dangerous that will be for Frodo. Frodo begs Gandalf at one point to take the ring from him, and Gandalf refuses. Gandalf is too powerful to bear the ring without falling into temptation. Only Frodo, a humble hobbit, can take the ring where it needs to go. And even here, that is only partially the truth. Frodo's friends, who know even less about the dangers they face than Frodo does, volunteer to come with him. And that makes a critical difference in the events that unfold. Frodo cannot destroy the One Ring without Samwise. Merry rides out with Éowyn to defeat the Witch King. Pippin saves Faramir from his father's madness and prevents the kingdom of Gondor from losing one of its most important captains during the final battles. Gandalf recognizes his separation from the hobbits not as proof of his own superiority, but as proof of his own weaknesses. Gandalf, with all of his power, can't destroy the One Ring because of that power. His obvious strength is a liability to the task at hand because of the risk he will abuse it. The Hobbit's innocence and naive friendship, so easy to dismiss as frivolous, is instead exactly what Middle-earth needs. They have little to no power that could be abused, and every reason to be supportive and generous. And here we come back to our design interns and how they relate to senior leadership. Newcomers to the industry are passionate and enthusiastic. There's so much they want to learn and to say. It's easy to dismiss them as inexperienced and foolish, but those qualities enable to do things that our senior leaders can't. A design intern can see the work with fresh eyes. They can attempt ambitious designs that, yes, will often blow up in their faces, but that a senior leader could not even afford to risk. Their genuine enthusiasm can be a rallying cry to a team mired in cynicism. Aren't we all here because we love to make games together? That might seem like a foolish question coming from the mouth of someone who should know better, but it is actually a deep truth. A good leader understands that they have power and a responsibility to use that power effectively. But a wise leader knows that power is also a weakness. It makes you vulnerable to the temptation to abuse it. It limits your perspective. It can make you distant from the people who are doing the work. It can remove you from the passions that caused you to begin this career in the first place. New game designers and their inexperience have many obvious weaknesses, but a wise leader sees their strengths. and the ways in which leadership and their people are tied together. All right, that was our final example. Let's review the myths, realities, and truths. Let's start with our myths. Our design interns believe leadership has a clear vision at all times. Our design professionals believe their skill sets are all that matter. Our senior designers believe leadership does not need to worry about them. Our lead designers believe that being a good leader or a bad leader is about them. Our directors believe that there is a difference between those who lead and those who don't. And here are our realities again. Leadership often does not know what it is doing and does not know what the game will be. Leadership asks more of professionals than just their skill sets. Your toughest, most experienced people need the most emotional support. Your greatest accomplishments as a leader are not about you. A leader's personality will be infused into the culture of their team. And once again, our deeper truths. Good leadership knows that guidance is more than knowing the perfect path to our destination. Good leadership recognizes their people problems over their skill problems. Good leadership recognizes that resiliency and sensitivity are not exclusive and must be fostered together. A leader's character is going to count when it really matters. A wise leader knows that their power is also their weakness. Human beings love stories. That's how we make sense of a universe whose complexities we cannot even begin to fully understand. But stories are not just things we consume as art or entertainment when we want to sit back and ponder the meaning of existence. We create and use stories to navigate daily life. You have a script in your head about how your relationship should go, how you should work, where road signs should be when you drive. Creative leadership is no different. We have myths in our head about what leading and following others should look like. And the truths these myths are telling us are often beyond our conscious grasp. They are telling us how limited our reasoning is, how we think we understand what our stories are really telling us when we often miss the true point entirely. Good leadership recognizes that we are all navigating as best we can. The future is unknowable and uncertain. We cannot be sure if we really understand what stories we are operating under or what they truly mean. And it is this humility that allows a good leader to keep their eyes open. They realize when a great idea comes from the newest member of the team. They show the courage to make a work of art and a piece of entertainment, even when they know guarantees of critical and commercial success do not exist. They may not know the truth of the myths that they are operating under, but they realize that the greater truth is always out there. Thank you so much. We'll take questions.
好的，非常感谢 Shen 帮我们讲解这个设计领导的这个神话。那我们现在进入 Q&A 环节，那有需要访问的人可以到我们中间前面的麦克风。
长者你好，我非常非常喜欢你用魔戒的团队去解释游戏设计团队各个阶层不同成员还有他们任务的这些比喻。那我感觉非常受用，但我对此有一个小小的疑问，就是我个人也是个魔戒的粉丝，我很好奇你会如何定义波罗莫的弟弟法拉莫，他在整个游戏团队里面，他又会是什么样的角色呢？因为法拉莫是一个对于整个魔戒之旅也有一部分的协助的人，他一开始因为误解，所以阻扰了整个游戏团队整个魔戒团队的旅程，但后来他反倒变成他们的助力。我很好奇你会怎么样比喻这样的角色在游戏团队里面
？So it's a really good question. So what about Faramir, Boromir's brother? How does he fit in? Faramir is sort of the up and coming leader that is overshadowed by the senior designers. So often what happens is you have a crew that came first, like a firstborn son, and that is the one who has gone through all the hardship, has seen everything first. And Faramir represents the new generation of hardworking design, up-and-coming design leadership. But he exists in Boromir's shadow. He can't be seen because Boromir is there. You know, their father looks to Boromir first. And in a game studio with a long pedigree, this happens. There are the people that have been there forever, who have been relied on for many years, and everyone looks to them first. And the people that come later, who then pick up a lot of that work and are the real next generation of leadership in the studio, don't get seen because everyone's used to looking at the firstborn son. So that's who Faramir is.
非常谢谢你的回答，不好意思，我问了一个有点奇怪的问题，谢谢。
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for an awesome talk. I guess to keep the Lord of the Rings theme going here,
Yeah.
I'm curious. I guess in my experience, I've seen the leads or directors of a team kind of lose their way. Mm-hmm. So I'm imagining if I were, say, like a mid or senior level person working for like Saruman, and I could see, you know, divisions and turmoil between him and Gandalf. What are some things I could do, or more importantly, should not do in a situation, rather than just like, oh no, things are going bad, I should like start looking for another job, right? Like, what are some things I can be more proactive about? So, thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question. Like the constant dilemma, what happens if you see that the plan is not going to work, but leadership doesn't see that? You know, and part of the answer there is that if you have a good leader, they'll be able to listen to you even if they do not originally see how bad the path is. That's sort of the lesson of Saruman. What's his main problem? He doesn't look at or listen to anyone else besides himself. He doesn't see how poorly things are going to go. And if you are in that environment as an individual, then the best thing that you can do is essentially focus on yourself and your colleagues, because obviously there's leaving and finding another job, but if that's not an option for you or you don't want to, then the survival of you and the people immediately around you become the only important thing. And not to get too much into history, but this happened during World War I with the trench warfare. Who survived and kept their morale up and managed to get through all of that horror? It was the people who had made friends with everyone else in the trench, and their life just became, we have to get home, you and me, through this bad situation. No matter how impractical the leadership is, we have to survive. So that would be my answer.
江长你好，我非常喜欢你的讲座。然后，如果这整个讲座未来可能发展在网络上，或是甚至出书的话，我非常乐意去买到，因为我真的觉得非常的受用。那我的问题在于说，你认为在领导这方面，它是更偏向于天生的呢，还是后期可以培养的？或是你一个可能更高领导的角度，你如何去挑选未来可能会成为领导人的这些特质有哪些？
Okay, so what qualities make a future leader? Yes. What are you born with, and what can you train?
Train leadership. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the debate: nature versus nurture, inborn talent versus skill and mastery. The critical skill set for a leader is seeing outwards, seeing other people, seeing what other people need, what they're looking for, and what you can provide to them to solve that problem. And some people have that naturally. Either they're more empathetic naturally, but often because they're raised in an environment where they have to look outward. You know, Aragorn is raised in an environment of great shame. His father was a king and fell because he had a moral failing, seized the ring for himself. And so Aragorn actually becomes a better leader because he has had to look outwards his whole life about how his lineage has affected everyone around him. And that prepares him for it, but also pains him. So can a leadership be taught? Yes, it is definitely a skill. You can train someone to look outwards, outside of themselves, to their effectiveness on other people. It's more of a challenge for some. You know, there are designers who have incredible individual skill, and they don't want to hear about how their work impacts other people, whether they're creating too much work for others or whether they don't have a collaborative attitude. And getting that instilled into them can be really hard. So when you're looking for your next round of leaders, what you're looking for isn't their individual talent, it's their awareness of everyone around them and the bigger picture.
Okay, very much. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Hi. I want to ask a question is about if our old leader, he used to lead us to a failure result, then how can we decide to retrust him, or should we just abandon him? For example, yes. For example, we know during the game development period, there was a lot of uncontrolled issue, right? So what if a company's founder, he faced a lot of issues, including past few years, then eventually he leave the company because we think he did a bad job. But after he leave the company for maybe 1 year, then the new leader also cannot solve the issue. So and now the company is going to crash. Then our old leader come back. Then as an employee, in this situation, how can I decide to trust this old leader again? Or I should just abandon this project and move to another? Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any clue or our formal experience can we consider in our thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. So you had an old boss. He didn't do well. He got replaced. That guy didn't do well. They're like, bring the old boss back. Let's see. Let's try this again. How will things? The key thing is, does he own the failure? Does he say, I understand, I have made mistakes in the past, and more importantly, that those mistakes hurt all of you. You know, you've had to either work hard or people were let go, and it has hurt our prospects for the future. And it's now on me to prove to you that I can bring back or lead us to our next phase. So that sense of personal responsibility from leadership, especially when trust is lost, is really important. You know, there's in relationship theory, marriage theory, when there is an affair, the person who had the affair needs to be the one who brings it up, not the person who was the victim, right? Because the person who had the affair has to show that they understand the pain that was brought by the breach in trust. So it's the same thing for professional leadership. If an old leader has been brought back after failure, he has to own the failure. He has to bring it up constantly, that it will not be the past, that he has learned from that past, and that he understands the pain he caused from his leadership failings.
So it sounds like you can only doing the research in face-to-face discussion again with him.
Yes, yes. Either he's talking to people privately or to the whole studio, but he needs to be expressing that he understands the failure and that he owns it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
First, thank you for your talk, and I would like to ask, like, if you have any books recommendations or maybe tips for new leaders. Because, like, in my case, I sort of got lucky. I was an independent game developer, but then like I got lucky and my game is like commercial success. And now like I certainly have a team, but I don't really have like work experience. I have no idea what I'm doing. So like I wonder if you have like any tips or like lessons that like you could teach us.
Further reading and reference. There are the big management science books, although they're not specific to creative leadership, but there's The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni. That is a book about organizational health, and that leadership's only job is keeping the team healthy through communication, by getting rid of people who aren't doing well, by having a consistent vision across all the departments. So that is a very good read, but it's management theory, so it can be dry if you're... Dare to Lead by Brené Brown, also pretty good. There are also a number of talks that you can look up. If you search for game design leadership on YouTube, GDC has a number of them.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
OK， 还有任何人想要再上来提问吗？因为我们现在才5:21，所以还有一点时间这样子。OK， 好。
你好，不好意思，我需要透过中文来提问。想请问的是，就是您提到领导人有一项重要的特质，是他必须要兼顾所有团队人员的需求。那我的疑问是，这个过程当中，领导人自己是要如何平衡他必须要配合别人的这个心理状态，就是或者是他如何支撑下去，他有这个情绪不会被其他人的情绪影响，然后在团队的立场上达到最好的前进方向。这是我的问题，谢谢。
Yeah, absolutely. So in leadership, you're looking to everyone else. How do you protect your own emotional state? Yeah, everything is how to. So I think one of the key pieces of perspective is that while you may be responsible for your team's efforts, their emotions are their own. And what they really want from you is to see them and to see their emotional state, not to fix it, but to see them and to listen to them. There are problems that you will need to solve as a leader, but usually when someone is upset, the worry they have as a human being deep down is that I'm going to be abandoned. Right, that I'm going to be left to die, that the tribe is going to move on without me. And sitting with them in their pain is the most important thing to do in that moment. So in that case, it's not about you. It's not, even if you cause the pain, just sitting with it and acknowledging it is what they really need.
Hi, thanks for the great talk. I'd like to ask, how do you think about balancing the sort of harmony of the team with focusing on the game itself and sort of which can involve a lot of hard work and a lot of iteration and throwing out work. In Anna's talk earlier today, she mentioned that a happy team is a good, good state of the team makes for a good, enjoyable game. Are these in conflict, or how do you think about this?
Yeah, it's a really good question. When we're iterating and we're making high-level decisions, especially if we're cutting things, throwing things out, that can be really hard. Because, put in years of my life, you're telling me we're just going to toss it. Managing expectations is so important because you need to let people know what phase of development are we in as we get closer and closer to launch and difficult decisions need to be made. You need to let them know that's coming. You're trying to create an environment in which they know what the rules are, So, for example, hey, everyone, when we hit beta in 6 months, we're going to decide which features will be cut. All right? And I want to assure everyone that this is not a personal decision. It's not about whether the effort was put in. It might not even be about how good the feature is. It's about how good is the feature in the project. And we'll be making that decision. So they have a long time to process that, to talk about it, and to internalize that is going to be normal. It's all about setting up structure so that people don't get blindsided by this. And you can do that even in a fast iterative environment. You just warn people, hey, 2 days from now, at the end of the sprint, we're going to do this. And just reinforcing that over and over and over. This is what's coming up. This is what's going to happen. This is what we're worried about. These are our high risks that we will eventually need to solve, or that leadership will need to solve. And that is what is going to give people the environment, the structured environment they need so that they can make decisions on their own. And that autonomy is ultimately what's really important.
Thank you. That helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, I have to ask my question in Chinese.
That's fine.
So, 谢谢你今天的 talk 这样，然后就是你有提到说，就是团队当领导是比较不喜欢争吵的时候，会容易带领出一个比较没有决断能力的团队。那我想知道说，就是您对，就是因为这是个人的个性，就是可能没有那么容易去改变这样。那就是对于这样的领导者，那会怎么样去平衡说，要让团队内大家可以和平相处，然后同时又让团队的人可以表达自己的意见，然后让团队有决断的能力。
Yeah. So you're a leader who's not naturally confrontational.
Yeah.
Don't like to confront people. How do I deal with that? I think the important thing is to realize that you don't have to be confrontational to resolve conflicts, but you do have to resolve the conflict. The resolution could be very peaceful, but it needs to be honest. If, say, you have 2 team members that are fighting, you don't have to yell at them. It could be something as simple as sitting them down in a room and just saying, we know you're fighting. The whole team sees it. Why? I just want to understand why. And again, sitting with them and getting to the bottom of it. General leadership can deal with problems, but it recognizes that it has to resolve them and resolves them quickly. So as long as you're willing to face the conflict, it doesn't matter your communication style. You can be a very peaceful person, but when you see conflict on the team, you have to deal with it directly.
Okay, very thank you.
Mm-hmm.
你好，感谢你的分享。然后我想问一下，就是关于可能很多的领导者他们的情绪是有时候会比较火爆的。那想问一下说，对于一个优秀的领导者来说，情绪控管还有共情能力以及专业能力的比重应该怎么去分配？
Oh, yes. So should a leader have good emotional regulation? Yes. Ideally, they should. Why don't they? And why do some leaders who are bad at emotional regulation still succeed? Ultimately, leadership is about influencing others. So if your influence comes from everyone being afraid of you, that's still influence. You know, there's no morality to it. It's just about effectiveness, you know. So but there are consequences to a leader's personality. So a leader who yells all the time and threatens everyone is not going to have a team that will give them anything challenging. The leader won't be told when things are going wrong. You know, they have created a vacuum, you know, a world of silence around themselves because everyone's scared of them. And then all of a sudden their team does something remarkably short-sighted and careens off of a cliff. And that's because no one felt safe to say anything. So there's a consequence to that. So you can have remarkably effective leaders who create poor environments that have long-term tragic consequences. But they succeed for the short term because ultimately they are able to influence other people.
Hello, thank you for your talk. And I'm a big fan of Subnautica and Subnautica Below Zero. Yeah. So I basically told everyone to play this game. Yeah. And okay, so my question is, as a leader on the world, like, what do you think the most important thing to be a leader? Like you say, you talk about many things should be a leader. Yes. So what do you think the most important thing to be a leader?
Yeah, I think, you know, especially in game development, where you are creative professionals, very educated, very smart, very passionate, a lot of the work happens on its own. So you don't have to tell people the steps or micromanage their day. Instead, what they really want from you is answering why. Why is this happening? Why are we doing this project? Why have we made this decision? Why is this the due date? All of these questions, because they're trying to solve problems. And if they don't know where the boundaries are, then the possibilities are infinite and you can't focus. So a creative team, I think creative leadership requires understanding why and communicating why the most. So I think that's the most important skill.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask, what do you suggest for a new leader that want to convince others to join his team? Because normally we would think that people that make some success in the past and it was followed because he know how to make success again. But this is a myth. Leader don't know the future. So what do you suggest for especially the new leader that never makes some success?
So you're a new leader, and how do you convince people to join the team? Yeah, I think the key thing there is to it's about selling the vision, the dream of what you're doing. Everyone has a different reason for being involved on a project, like a private reason. But there's a shared goal of bringing the project to reality. And so I think the key thing there is to start with the project itself. And why are you excited about it? If you can really dig deep and ask yourself why you want to commit so much time and effort into this project, then you can present that to other people. You know, not everyone will say yes, but you're not looking for everyone. You're looking for the people that share that excitement. So try to ignore the rejections and focus on who gets excited with me. That's who I want to work with.
Thank you.
Sorry for asking another question, but I would like to ask, like, how do you balance showing vulnerability or acting confidence in the team? Because sometimes you would like to show your vulnerability, so others can know that you don't have all the answers. But sometimes if you are just at confidence, then people will there's a lot of issues with both sides, right?
So how do you balance confidence with
vulnerability? So it's like acting telling others that there's stuff that I don't know and I would need your help.
So balancing vulnerability and confidence. That's a very good question. I think the important thing is to recognize that once you are in a position of authority, you have power in the hierarchy. So showing vulnerability is very powerful because everyone knows they should listen to you anyway. Sometimes they don't. But they know they should. So it's scary to show vulnerability because you think, well, people think I'm weak. But you're in charge. So they know at some level they can't. So I wouldn't be afraid of seeming incompetent. There are times where you can demonstrate competence as a leader, and that's when decisions need to be made and communicated. That is the time to show confidence. We have made this decision. Here are the reasons why. We know it cannot cover every question. The future is always uncertain, but we have to chart the best course with what we know now. And so that's why the decision is being made. That's when you show confidence.
Okay, thank you.